Long ago in the land of Israel, two great armies gathered for war on opposite hills. The Philistines stood on one side, and the army of Israel on the other, a valley between them. Then out from the Philistine ranks stepped a champion, a giant of a man named Goliath. He stood over 9 feet tall, clad in bronze armor, carrying a spear like a weaver's beam. Goliath roared across the valley, "Send me a man, and let us settle this with a single fight." When King Saul and all his soldiers heard this, they were terrified and dismayed. For 40 days, morning and evening, the giant came out to taunt the trembling army of Israel. Far away in Bethlehem, there lived a young shepherd boy named David, the youngest of 8 sons. David spent his days tending his father's sheep, playing his harp, and trusting God with all his heart. He was brave and faithful, once striking down a lion and a bear to protect his flock. David's 3 eldest brothers had gone to join King Saul's army in the Valley of War. One day his father said, "Take this bread and cheese to your brothers, and see how they fare." So David rose early, left the sheep with a keeper, and set out for the army camp. He reached the camp just as the soldiers were shouting their war cry and rushing to their lines. Then David heard the giant's booming taunt and saw the soldiers flee from him in fear. David asked, "Who is this giant that he should defy the armies of the living God?" The soldiers told him the king would richly reward any man who could defeat the giant. Word of the bold young shepherd soon reached the ears of King Saul himself. David was brought before the king and said, "Let no one lose heart. I will go and fight him." But Saul replied, "You are only a boy, and he has been a warrior since his youth." David answered, "Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear that attacked my flock. The Lord who saved me from the lion and the bear will save me from this giant too." Saul looked at the boy's courage and said, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." Then Saul dressed David in his own royal armor, with a bronze helmet and a heavy coat of mail. But the armor was so heavy that David could barely walk beneath its weight. "I cannot go in these," he said, "for I am not used to them," and he took the armor off. Instead, David took only his shepherd's staff and his trusty leather sling. He went down to a stream and carefully chose 5 smooth stones for his pouch. Then David walked out into the valley, and the giant turned to face the small shepherd boy. Goliath looked at the boy with scorn and said, "Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks?" The giant cursed David by his gods and laughed at the boy who dared to challenge him. But David called back, "You come with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the Lord." "This day the battle belongs to God," David declared, "and he will deliver you into my hand." With a furious roar, the giant lifted his shield and charged toward the young shepherd. David did not run away. Instead, he ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his pouch, David took out a single smooth stone and placed it in his sling. He swung the sling around and around, then released the stone with all his might. The stone flew straight and true, striking the giant squarely upon his forehead. The mighty giant staggered, and then fell face down upon the ground with a thunderous crash. For a moment, the whole valley fell utterly silent, as both armies stared in disbelief. The young shepherd boy stood victorious over the fallen giant, with no sword in his hand. When the Philistines saw their champion had fallen, they turned and fled in terror. The army of Israel raised a great shout and rushed forward, and the victory was won. The people celebrated David, the brave shepherd boy whose faith had saved them all. From that day on, the name of David was known and honored throughout all the land. And so we learn that with faith in God, even the smallest can overcome the greatest of giants.